The sky over Mordor is quiet. The eye is dark. In its place rises a queen crowned in starlight, fair and terrible, and the roads of Middle-earth learn to obey. Forests surge back like green tide. Borders become songs that also sound like laws. So what if Galadriel said yes? Short answer. She takes the ring, wins fast by force, dethrones Sauron, and turns preservation into control. That victory cannot unmake what it imitates, and the bill arrives later with interest. Tonight, on Fool of a Tube, we will stress test this timeline. Isengard as the first demonstration, a Palantir war room, a re-weighted Pelennor, the Black Gate broken open, and the Dark Tower contained, but not fallen. We will map the end states. Best, bitter, bleak. Ask whether Gandalf could stop a ring queen without a duel, and follow how Nenya plus the One rewires mercy into management. Boots on, bright crown up. Let us walk the golden wood that became a capital. The company is ash-dusted and raw from Moria. A wizard has just fallen, and the grief has not learned how to breathe yet. In a glade of silver trunks and soft light, Frodo offers a tiny circle of catastrophe to the mightiest lady east of the sea. In the book we know, she laughs, diminishes, and refuses. In the path we are walking tonight, that laughter never comes. The hand that has tended starlight for 3 ages closes over the ring, and the air changes key. In place of the Dark Lord, you would have a queen, beautiful and terrible as the morning and the night. She does not merely imagine the line, she answers it. The mirror dims. Lorien is no longer a sanctuary, it is a headquarters. And with a choice that short, history becomes very long. To keep this from turning into fan fiction-free jazz, we fix 2 canon anchors. First, the One Ring does not transform into a benevolent power tool when a good person touches it. It magnifies will and turns every plan into a geometry of control. The Council's ethic: we cannot use the ruling ring. It is altogether evil, is not merely piety. It is the operating system of Middle-earth. Second, the 3 rings ride on a current Sauron set in motion. They were untainted by his hand, but bound to the fate of his masterwork. Destroy the One, and their virtue fades. Wield the One, and even their healing can tilt toward dominion. The 3 were not made by him, but they were made using the craft he taught. Once Galadriel slides the One on a chain against her palm, those truths start accounting the future in iron. Without the One, Nenya preserves. It arrests decay, holds a memory of the West inside a living wood, helps people feel like themselves again after the world has tried to sand them down. Add the One, and preservation through control becomes the new last name. Galadriel's sight, already deep, extends and sharpens. Her voice, already compelling, now arrives with the gravity of a planet. Hospitality remains real. Tea is still hot and the bread still sweet, but strategy enters the room like a general with a map. She will not wait for doom to knock politely. Tolkien himself says what someone like Galadriel or Elrond would do if they took the ring. They would have built up an empire with great and absolutely subservient generals and armies and engines of war until they could challenge Sauron and destroy him by force. That is not a vibe, that is a blueprint. Aragorn, who is a connoisseur of duty flavored with dread, hesitates and then salutes the reality in front of him. Gondor cannot fight a war with wishful thinking. If this is how the West rallies, he will move within it to protect as much freedom as he can. Legolas bows to his elder with the complex mixture of reverence and discomfort that only an immortal can perfect. Gimli's devotion to the lady grows warmer, even as a dwarf's practical mind blinks. Monarchs with new rings are historically a lot Boromir mutters at last, in a register halfway between triumph and vindication. If Minas Tirith is a flame in wind, let the mightiest shield it. Frodo exhales like a fever breaking and becomes small again. Not worthless, never that. But suddenly, heartbreakingly, unnecessary. He is cherished, honored, escorted, and, as a matter of policy, sent home to the Shire with Sam, Merry, and Pippin under escort. If the West is going to win by force, the West will not spend a gentle life on a mountain. Mercy retreats from center stage. Efficiency bows, takes the star's mark, and walks to her spot. The first target is not Mordor. It is ambiguity. Saruman the White is a mirror the ring does not like, a genius of devices and schedules, a lover of symmetry with a fondness for spreadsheets of men. He has a fortified tower with pits beneath and a voice that turns kings into meetings. Galadriel has two motives to move on Isengard immediately. Strategically, remove a rival technocrat and deny Mordor an industrial ally. Morally, cut the snare from Theoden's mind and end the long insult to Rohan's dignity. So she leads a modest host down the Isen. What follows rhymes with what the text assigns to her after the war. The demolition of Dol Guldur, not by patient siege, but by pulling the pins from the world beneath it. The circles of Isengard flood and break, pits collapse, the works are ruined, but Orthanc itself, hewn of unbreakable stone, stands black and whole, trapped and neutralized. Saruman's staff breaks when the earth does. In the mud and ruin, a palantir is recovered and wrapped like a weapon that also happens to be a window. If she can throw down a fortress then, she can do it now, for a darker reason. Lorien needs more hands than it has harps. Thranduil answers with archers because the East keeps its receipts, and the woodland realm hates shadows that eat rivers. Elrond answers with captains and caveats. He knows exactly what he is walking into. Letter 246 says he would build an empire if he had the one. He does not. So he comes with the long counsel of Imladris and prepares himself to lose arguments gracefully. Gondor's steward will distrust anything he cannot direct, but when Orthanc is in pieces and letters bearing the lady's seal arrive with Boromir's signature and a report of factories turned to graves, even Denethor listens. Rohan, when freed of Grima's sugared poison, nods once and loudly. The hand that lifts Edoras from mist may ask, later, for much, but today it is strength sent at speed. Sauron is not surprised that a Great One took the bait. He is surprised which Great One did. He adjusts. In the canon calendar he is forced by Aragorn's Palantir Gambit, by Entwood's March, and by a king's late dawn. Here he is forced earlier and wider. The Witch King is ordered out of Minas Morgul ahead of comfort. Garrisons reposition to make Gorgoroth a stovetop, and the Morannon a pressure valve. Most important, the Nine remember their best trick. Tolkien lays it out explicitly for the counterfactual. The Nazgul would feign submission to a new claimant wielding the One, keeping him from Mount Doom until Sauron could come in person. They do not kneel out of love. They aim to guide. In effect, they try to shepherd the new queen away from the only win condition that ends their story, a small fire in a very particular mountain. The beacons blaze early. The red arrow rides with dignity. Denethor, who in the book had long prepared for siege, meets the king by right bearing Andúril at his gate, instead of treating with a phantom prince in green. Theoden arrives sooner, and with more of the mark, because there was no Helm's Deep to consume his riders. The scene outside Minas Tirith still erupts into an operatic tangle of horns and banners, only this time the war has been coordinated, like a symphony by a conductor with a ring on her finger. The Witch King still dies. Whether that doom lands via Eowyn's courage, a white staff at the gate, or both, the Black Captain falls, and the armies of Mordor find themselves in the same bad dream as in our book, except now the West bleeds less and holds the field with a steadier hand. Galadriel has not set foot in the city. She does not need to. She has timed courage, concentrated mass, and kept a rival Maya from contesting her cockpit. In the text we love, the last debate is a council of peers with different strengths and a single ethic. Here it is a briefing. The decision is not whether to approach the Morannon, but how fast to crush it. Gandalf finally knows what happened in the wood. He also knows something only Tolkien can say with judicial weight. A confrontation of Sauron alone, unaided, self to self, was never contemplated for anyone but Gandalf. That line matters because it names the only contest that ends the Dark Lord utterly. Galadriel is not planning that contest. She is planning a dethronement, wreck the armies, topple the tower, break the network, and make the land answer to a different center. In canon, the hosts at the Black Gate are there to distract Sauron's gaze from two small shapes on a cinder cone. In this branch, there is no decoy. The gate is the point. The hosts of elves and men unfurl like a map rolled the right way up, and the Morannon stares back, shut and ugly. Galadriel looks at a lock and hears a song. It is not the song that healed a willow or woke a hobbit's name. It is the music that opens stone. The hinges come apart. The doors do not swing wide. They fail. The west surges in as if the land had been holding its breath, and for an hour, victory looks like a place. Walls do not stop this queen. The strength that later raises Dol Guldur in a world without the One is now married to it, tuned for speed rather than mercy. But Barad-dûr itself cannot be overthrown while the One endures. It was built with the power of the ring, and while it lasted, the tower could not fall. Galadriel can ring it with fire and silence, shatter the works around it, and pen Sauron in his deepest vaults. She cannot raise the Dark Tower. The Nazgûl rise and are broken in the air, fell beasts riddled with arrows, the wraiths forced to withdraw or submit, but their final ending awaits the rings. What does not happen is the quiet, terminal thing that counts as victory in Tolkien's arithmetic. No chain drops into fire, no malice is ended at its source. Sauron is dethroned, not unmade, a sleepless will, a weather pattern of hatred, a whisper with patience. The banners are furled, the captains are counting survivors instead of dead. The White City hums at a higher voltage, and then the fact everyone has politely avoided gets sticky. The lady will not hand back the One. Why would she? It ended an age in a week. It saved thousands of lives on the Pelennor. It broke the gate like a loaf of bad bread. The ethical rule spoken at the council, we cannot use the ruling ring, now looks like a policy suggestion from a committee that never strapped on armor. Denethor might have argued. Aragorn does not, because arguing with the sovereign gravity of Galadriel feels like debating sunrise. Rohan nods and rides home, louder at feasts and quieter in letters. Elrond and Gandalf face the choice their hearts wrote long ago: remain and lend dignity to an empire built on a tool they warned against, or leave and surrender the three so that the new center has no rivals. Here is the razor Tolkien cuts with competence. Galadriel with the One could do astonishing good for a time. Forests would return where slag once steamed. The Anduin's banks would come clean of quiet poisons. Fangorn would not merely endure, it would quire. Trade would be orderly. Roads would be safe. Borders would be less about fear and more about shape. But the instrument is the instrument. Preservation at that scale, powered by a ruling ring, becomes a policy of exclusion. Mortal kingdoms become tenants in a conservation plan whose zoning laws are poetry written with a sword. Men's brief lives, which the good queen honors, are fenced by permits and liturgies of access. Elves do not sail, because the sea has nothing to offer that a continent under competent eternity cannot provide. Fair as the sea, yes, and as dominating. Stronger than the foundations of the earth. All shall love me and despair. The quote was never a joke. It was the manual. Empire by charisma and engines runs well, until it does not. Orc remnants cohere in the east like clots in a system that thought it finished bleeding. Harad remembers being talked at by shining people. Khand remembers being mapped for someone else's good. Closer to home, an opposition forms not in alleys but in libraries. Imladris loyalists and Dunedain constitutionalists who argue, very politely, that swapping an eye for a circlet didn't fulfill the West's promise. These are not revolutionaries. They are stewards of a different end. Meanwhile, the land itself begins to depend on the ring's constant pressure to stay so very green. Pull back the power for mercy, and time rushes in. Keep it humming, and culture calcifies into gardens where songs are lovely and somehow less true. If you are into these Tolkien stress tests that keep one foot in letters and one in what-ifs, subscribe to Fool of a Tube. We bring the quotes, the maps, and just enough cheek to make a Balrog roll its eyes. Right, back to the lady and the bill she keeps trying not to read. Tolkien's most precarious sentence, in letter 246, crushes false hope while leaving a narrow door of grace. A direct spiritual showdown, self to self, with Sauron was contemplated only for Gandalf. That does not directly map to Gandalf versus Galadriel, but it implies a boundary. The wizard's power is not a lightning measuring contest. It is the to end by unmaking, to apply humility like acid. If Gandalf opposes Galadriel, it will not be as dueling halos over the Pelennor. It will be as witness, counsel, and refusal. The slow, infuriating insistence that victory won by domination is a costume change, not a cure. In a world drunk on quick results, that looks like failure. In Tolkien's world, that is the only force that actually puts graves on dark empires and lets people plant something new on top. In the canonical tale, Providence, call it Eru's mercy, call it luck with a capital L, works by keeping pride from seeing the small hinge that matters. That is how a creature of two names can bite off a finger and trip into history's furnace. That is how a Palantir can be a weapon without killing the hand that touches it. That is how a king can heal with leaves while the world decides to trust him. In the Yes timeline, Providence has fewer levers. The one is back in play and everything is louder. Small things matter less because a large thing shouts at them. The fire still burns inside Orodruin, patient as ever, but no one is walking that road for it. The wise have decided to be efficient. Fate does not resent them. Fate simply waits for the bill. The best version of this new age is not empty triumph. Sauron is dethroned, his symbols are dust, the rivers sing, men flourish materially, elves reign gently, the Shire is safe behind hedges that prune themselves. The price is subtle and high. Freedom becomes gratitude, dissent becomes rudeness, sailing becomes treachery, and when the queen at last grows weary, there is no west to welcome her. The bitter midline is an empire that hardens as men it saved ask to be men again, not curated exhibits. There are border wars with smiling names. There is a schism among the Eldar that reads like polite tea until it is not. A mortal king, perhaps a descendant of Aragorn, winds up breaking the ring regime at unspeakable cost. And while the land goes on, the songs are smaller. The bleak branch is faster. Sauron learns. The shadow without hands returns. The second showdown is not a hobbit at a crack, but two tyrannies colliding, and the world, exhausted, chooses the one that promises to let it sleep. All this dark glitter is precisely why Tolkien protects us from it. He is not being coy when he makes Galadriel refuse. He is rescuing the story's thesis from a seductive experiment. Means shape ends. The Astari arrive bound by rules, because domination, even tidy, ruins the victory it delivers. Aragorn's hands heal because rule is service, or it is theatre. Galadriel's temptation is placed where it is, so her renunciation can shape the rest of the book's refusals. Gandalf refusing the ring and the tower, Faramir refusing the easy capture of power, Frodo refusing to cast others into the burden's fire. In letter 246, Tolkien even adds that her rejection was founded upon previous thought and resolve. She had already done the interior arithmetic. Our yes timeline is what happens when that resolve falters under grief and necessity, when the brightest good borrows the worst tool and tells itself it will put it back when the house is tidy. Here is one new angle to pair with canon. Think of the rings as ecologies rather than batteries. The three cultivate microclimates of memory and healing, gardens in the richest sense. The one turns ecologies into systems, defined by control loops and central dashboards. Galadriel's yes is the moment a gardener becomes a systems engineer. Gardens can be planned. Systems demand compliance. In the short run, systems outperform. In the long run, gardens outlive the planners. That is why the Shire, which looks like an afterthought to generals, is actually the epistemology of victory in The Lord of the Rings. Galadriel's no leaves the Shire free to be the lab where mercy grows teeth. Her yes would pave the lab and claim the journal. If we sum without fog, Galadriel's yes births the only campaign Tolkien himself sketches for a non-Sauron ringlord, empire, engines, subservient generals, decisive force. It wins battles, topples fortresses, and dethrones a shadow. It cannot end the logic it borrows. It bends preservation toward dominion and asks friends to become instruments. It produces beauty that bites and order that slowly forgets freedom's taste. It does not give us the Lord of the Rings we know. It gives us the warning that made the one we know necessary, which is why the line that saves the book is the one that never happens in our thought experiment. A laugh, a diminishment, a refusal, and a light hand waving a small traveler toward a hard road, because that is how real victories are purchased here, not by seizing the lever, but by unmaking it. So where did we land? Yes means swift banners and safer roads, a dethroned shadow and a beauty that bites. Dethronement, not unmaking. Preservation becomes policy. Freedom learns new manners. Thanks for wandering this darker branch with fool of a tube. Tell us which end state you would wager on. Best, bitter, or bleak. And what you would do if a queen asked for your allegiance at the Black Gate. Next time, we might flip the tone with the spoof cut of this very question. Until then, keep your leaves green, your counsels humble, and your second breakfast unregulated.